You have made peace with the ruin. You arranged the rubble. You learned to navigate the collapse with enough competence that no one looking from the outside would know the walls were gone. But you know. You know because the feeling does not leave. There is a low, persistent sense that what stands here now is not what was designed to stand here. Not failure. Something quieter. The distance between what was built and what remains. Most men have never had a word for it. They have the weight of it. The early morning moments when the noise stops and the distance between the man they are and the man they were made to be is not abstract. It is measurable. It is the exact weight of every stone surrendered, one compromise at a time, until the ruin became familiar enough to call home. I will show you what the man called home that was never a home. I will show you what the rubble has been hiding since the first stone fell. And I will show you what God does with a man who stops managing his own ruin and lets the builder back through the door. And why what the builder does first is not what the man expected. The foundation is still there. The question is not whether the man can rebuild. The question is whether he is willing to clear the rubble, or whether he has decided the wreckage is all he deserves. Is the man willing to let the architect back through the door, or has he grown too comfortable arranging stones? And into that silence, before the man answers, before he decides, a word rises from before his first breath, not as consolation, as confrontation with what was always true underneath the ruin. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5. Before the first compromise, before the first stone fell, before the man had done anything to earn it or lose it, God had already formed him, already knew him, already set him apart. The ruin is real. The collapse is documented. The walls that fell did fall. And pretending otherwise is not faith, it is avoidance. But underneath every collapsed wall, underneath every room the weather moved through, underneath the rubble the man arranged and rearranged and learned to navigate in the dark, the foundation remains. The church told you God restores the faithful. Scripture says God restores what he formed, before you were faithful, before you were anything. The restoration is not a reward for the man who held it together. It is the return of the architect to his own work. You cannot have ruins without architecture. You cannot have collapse without something that was built. The ruin is proof of what stood. And what stood was not built by the man alone. It was laid by a hand that has not forgotten the original design and has not abandoned the right to finish what it started. The man is not starting from nothing. He is returning to something. And the distance between those two realities is the difference between a man who despairs and a man who goes to war. But there is a room in the ruin the man has kept locked. Not the obvious rooms. The one he renovated himself and told the builder was fine. That room is where the restoration has been stalled. And what the builder does when he finally reaches that room, that is what the enemy has been working to prevent since the first stone fell. You have been deceived about what restoration costs. You were told it cost effort, discipline, the right habits assembled in the right order. So the man tried. He moved stones. He rebuilt sections. He produced the appearance of reconstruction, and wondered why the structure felt no more solid than the ruin it replaced. Why the same walls kept coming down. Why the same rooms kept filling with the same darkness he thought he had cleared. The man who tries to rebuild himself always produces the same result. Tidier rubble, rearranged stones, the appearance of reconstruction without the presence of the one who laid the original foundation. David knew this. David, who had seen the full depth of what a man becomes when God's hand is not on him. who sat in the ruin of what he had made and understood with perfect clarity that there was nothing in him capable of restoring what he had broken. He did not calculate what he could rebuild. He did not assemble a discipline. He said two words that changed the direction of everything. And from the ash of that reckoning, the most precise act of warfare a broken man can commit rises like a prayer that God has been waiting to answer. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. Psalm chapter 51, verse 10. Create, renew. Both verbs belong to God, neither belongs to the man. The man does not create his own clean heart through accumulated right choices. Every attempt produces the same thing. A man working very hard in a ruin, moving stones from one side to the other, calling it progress because the pile looks different than yesterday. The architect does not call it progress. The architect sees the foundation. The architect knows what the structure was supposed to be, and he is not guessing at the restoration. He is returning to his own work, clearing what does not belong, placing back what was always meant to be there. This is not renovation. This is resurrection, stone by stone, not in a single night, through the long, unglamorous, costly work of a builder who refuses to leave what he made in the condition the man's choices reduced it to. But the restoration costs the man something, not his effort, his control. The man who lets the builder back through the door must surrender the right to determine what stays and what goes. What goes is not always what the man expected. The builder knows which walls are load-bearing and which ones the man erected to hide what he did not want examined. Those walls come down first. If there is a man in your life who has been managing his ruin for so long, he has forgotten what the original structure was supposed to look like. Send him this. Not tomorrow. The builder is already at the door. What the restored man becomes is not a private matter. It is a declaration. And what that declaration does to the enemy who counted on the ruin staying permanent. That is the war this has always been about. Stop. Not as a transition, as a command. What room have you kept locked? Not the room everyone knows about. The one you told the builder was already handled. The one you renovated yourself with stones you chose. That room is still there. The builder has not forgotten it, and he is not moving past it. The church told you surrender was weakness. Scripture says surrender is the moment the restoration actually begins, because the builder cannot work in rooms the man refuses to open. And heaven answers with a verse that does not belong to Nehemiah alone. It belongs to every man who stopped managing his ruin and let the architect work. And it happened when all our enemies heard of it, and all the nations around us saw these things, that they were very disheartened in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was done by our God. Nehemiah, chapter 6, verse 16. This work was done by our God, not by exceptional men, not by men who held it together, by men who returned to the foundation and got out of the builder's way. The restored man is not a monument to his own discipline. He is a testimony to the work of a God who returned to the ruin and refused to leave it as rubble, who saw what the man had become and said, "This is still mine. I know what this was built to be. I have not forgotten, and I am not finished." The restored man does not stand alone. He stands in an order of men who return to their foundations and let the architect work. Men who cleared the rubble not because they were strong enough, but because they were finally willing. Enlist. Join the order. The temple does not rise to impress. It rises to declare that the ruin was never the final word over the man who was known before the womb. That what God builds, God restores, not because the man earned the restoration, but because the builder does not abandon his own work. that the walls the enemy counted on staying down are coming up, stone by stone, in the long, unglamorous hours when no one is watching, through the steady hand of a God who already knows what the finished structure looks like. The risen man carries this not as pride, but as weight, as the sober understanding that what stands in him now is not his achievement. It is God's testimony written in a life the enemy was certain was finished. And that testimony is not quiet. Every man who looks at the restored structure perceives what Nehemiah's enemies perceived, that this work was done by God, not by a man who held it together, by a man who finally stopped holding it together and let the architect hold it instead. Picture this: a man standing in a restored hall, not the hall he built, the hall the builder rebuilt through him. Stone walls that have held through winter, a fire burning in the room that was locked the longest, light coming through an opening that was rubble 6 months ago. The man did not build this. He cleared the way for the one who did. And the enemy, standing outside the wall that was never supposed to stand again, looking at what rose from what he was certain was finished, is disheartened. Not by the man, by the God who came back for him. That is the man God had in mind before the womb. The ruin is not home. It never was. Rise, not by your own hand, by his.